Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Tales of Herding Gods based on novel. So let's start. Qin Mu, the chest, the dragon Qin, as well as the skeletons and bones that were flying throughout the whole sky fell down. Qin Mu's heart fell into despair. He hadn't wanted to make any sound so that they could avoid being heard by Shingan, that pervert. However, God's plans superseded his own. All his plans could be said to have gone to naught. Bang, bang, bang. They crashed into a pile of bones. The bunch of skeletons in the surroundings cried out noisily, arguing who had shattered whose pelvis or thigh bone. Some were even seizing each other's ribs, their voices incomparably loud. Suddenly, some skeletons started fighting. It was unknown from where they'd gotten bone clubs, but they used them to wave around randomly, cracking one another's skulls. Unless Shingan was deaf, it was impossible for him to miss this commotion with his ears. Qin Mu stood up shakily and looked around in a daze. The dense fog earlier had become much fainter, and there was more light around. He looked toward the east and couldn't help being stunned. Within surging river's fog, a vast and obscure world of bones was rapidly forming. It appeared in the center of great ruins and overlapped with it. "You are stepping on me," a weak voice cried out from under the chest. It jumped in shock, but when it saw that the one talking was a pile of bones, the chest couldn't help becoming delighted. It opened in joy and swallowed the pile of talking bones. After its spirit was awakened by Qin Mu, it liked to collect these kinds of weird things. Ghost. The dragon Qilin's hair and scales all stood up on ends, and his body became stiff. When he saw a whole mountain filled with skeletons, this fatty flipped around and raised his legs straight up toward the sky. When the chest saw that he was dead, it wanted to swallow him in as well. It started from the tail, but when it swallowed him until the buttocks, the dragon Qilin gave a kick and said in a low and anger-filled voice, "Stop messing around, I'm feigning dead." Fungu, this is the outside world of Fungu. Qin Mu watched the rapidly moving world. When it overlapped with reality, the mountains in the real world seemed to have vanished. It was incomparably strange. His heart moved slightly, and he kicked the dragon Qilin. "Fatty dragon, get up, your ability to feign dead is not as convincing as that of Linga. If you still don't want to get up, the skeletons will come to eat some meat." Meat, meat. Below the dragon Qilin, a skeleton smelled the fragrance of meat and couldn't help smiling. It opened its mouth and hugged the dragon Qilin's leg to bite into it. Meat! Meat! In the sea of skeletons, countless ones became excited and sprinted over in enthusiasm. As they did so, they created a skeleton wave that was as high as 300 yards. Whoosh! The skeleton wave crashed down, and countless skeletons rolled together, transforming into a white bone giant that sprinted frantically, coming over with excitement to eat meat. "I have no flesh, give me your flesh. Leave a skin for me, my skin has already rotted." The dragon Qilin hurriedly flipped over and crushed the skeletons that had pounced on him into smithereens. Upon seeing it, he almost fainted again. The Buddha light around Qin Mu shone brightly, and behind him appeared the apparition of a white jade Buddha. The skeleton giant that was rushing over instantly crumbled, and the skeletons fled in all directions. "Not delicious, it's that young bald donkey from back then. Run!" Qin Mu was speechless. He took out a gold coin and shone it into the sea of fog. A lone boat was sailing through there. "All scram!" Shingan's voice came from afar. He had already taken back his eyes and rushed over by following the noise. As he closed in, he shattered countless skeletons that were pouncing on him with vibrations and blew them away. In his fury, he raised an entire skeleton mountain in one strike and shattered countless skeletons. He pounced toward Qin Mu with overflowing might and arrogance. Qin Mu had caused him setbacks after setbacks, and this made him unable to not feel true anger in his heart. All he wanted to do now was to get rid of this fellow that had made a fool out of him time after time. Qin Mu hurriedly executed his teleportation divine art and swept up the chest that was collecting skeletons and the dragon Qilin who was shivering. He teleported toward the lone boat that could be faintly seen in the fog. "You want to use the same move twice?" Come down. One of Shingan's eyes flew over and shone in the air. Qin Mu's teleportation runes were instantly sliced, and he appeared out of space with the chest and the dragon Qin. They fell toward the sea of fog below. In the sea of fog, monsters were churning and they were abnormally excited. At that moment, the lone boat suddenly went to where Qin Mu and the rest were falling, catching them. Senior brother Shingan, I trust you have been well since we last met. The boatman that was controlling the boat raised his bamboo hat and revealed his bony frame, smiling sinisterly. Shingan, who had chased them to the shore, was slightly stunned. He stopped then, unable to recognize the other. He asked suspiciously, "Who are you?" Senior brother Shingan doesn't recognize Daoist Ling Jing anymore? Back then, you chased me everywhere just to seize my divine blood, yet you have forgotten all about me by now. How sad does this make me feel? The boatman moved his bamboo pole and pushed the boat into the distance while smiling. This is the world of Fungu, and senior brother Shingan is a living person, so please return. This is not a place you can step into. Shingan called back his eyes and took a step into the sea of fog. It instantly churned as the monsters stirred up havoc and became restless. The monsters in the fog were incomparably strong, yet he wasn't afraid of them in the slightest. He continued to chase after the lone boat while saying indifferently, "If living people couldn't step in, why could they board the boat? Daoist Ling Jing, you and I are still considered acquaintances after all, so it isn't good to lie to me like this, don't you think so?" His speed was extremely fast, and even in the strange sea of fog, he was just strolling. The lone boat couldn't get away from it all. Instead, the distance was gradually shortening. "Do you have money?" Daoist Ling Jing asked leisurely. "Money will make the ghost push the boat. The youth has the money to pay the boat expense so he can naturally board my ship and enter Fungu. You don't have money, so you can only drink the northwest wind. Go back, Fungu is not a place you can come to. There are too many existences you can't offend here." Shingan gave a cold snort and continued forward. But suddenly, a huge monster rose up from the sea of fog and dragged him down. In the lone boat, the dragon Qin was shocked. He hurriedly went to the side of the boat to take a look. Daoist Ling Jing raised his bamboo cane and gently pushed his head down. He smiled and said, "Stupid thing, some of the terrifying entities below are unreasonable. Be careful that they don't bite your head." Before he even finished speaking, the sea of fog trembled violently. Roars of monsters rang out, and the huge mountains in the fog trembled violently. What formed those mountains were piles of white bones which changed into giants at that moment to flee. The dragon Qin hurriedly lay down prone in the hold of the boat and covered his eyes with his two claws, but he kept peeking through the gap between them. The battle in the sea of fog was becoming more and more intense, raising astonishing waves that even pushed their boat high up before it fell from the tip of the wave. Qin Mu executed Bright Heaven's eyes and barely made out that there was more than one huge monster that was fighting Shingan in the sea of fog. At the sight of it, his heart trembled violently, and he let out a shaky breath. Shingan is truly remarkable. Daoist Ling Jing, who was now a skeleton, pushed his bamboo cane and smiled sinisterly. Of course he is remarkable. However, he can't raise any waves here. The sea of fog is condensed from the grievances of the dead during the end of founding emperor era. After everyone died, they couldn't continue properly, so they condensed their grievances and transformed into monsters that block everyone who dares to barge into Fungu. During the end of founding emperor era, too many people died in great ruin, so the abilities of these monsters are equivalent to those of gods. Qin Mu was slightly stunned. These skeletons are the people who died during the calamity of founding emperor era? Why can't they enter Fungu? Fungu only accepts useful souls. In Daoist Ling Jing's skull, two flames gave off faint glows. They are useless and didn't fulfill the requirements. For one to enter Fungu, they would need to have abilities equivalent to those of gods. Even I had barely passed to be allowed to Fungu. Thus, all those people could only gather around the outskirts of Fungu, but not cross this sea of fog. Qin Mu had a weird expression. If it was the grievances of the skeletons that formed the sea of fog and changed them into monsters, then it was they themselves who had blocked their way inside. What goes around comes around. King Yama actually had the intention to extradite them, but Fungu is too small. On top of that, Fungu even has to be wary of you do. Daoist Ling Jing obvious knew many secrets, but he wasn't willing to say more. He was also a person who had died and could only live in Fungu, situated in a bizarre state that was neither life nor death. Qin Mu couldn't see if he was alive or dead. If he was dead, his flesh would grow when he entered the living realm of the dead. If he was alive, he would immediately die and cease to exist if he left Fungu. The movements under the sea of fog became more and more violent. It was obvious that the battle between Shingan and the monsters was becoming more and more intense. It was truly heart-palpitating to see. One had to say that Shingan was extremely strong. Even when faced with the monsters born from grievances, he could still fight against them. This pervert. Daoist Ling Jing took a look at the sea of fog and saw Shingan and various monsters fighting their way up the sea. Those monsters reached the clouds and were even larger than the skeleton mountains and islands in the surroundings. Their offensive power was incomparably terrifying, but Shingan was even more terrifying. Human Emperor Qin, quickly go ashore. Daoist Ling Jing's eyesight was superior, and he said, he will break free soon. Also, you owe me 4 Fungu coins, so plus this time, it will be a total of 5 coins. Qin Mu took out 4 Fungu coins and Daoist Ling Jing accepted them. He stretched his back and said with a smile, they all have someone above them and can enjoy the moment they enter Fungu. Yet I still have to earn money. When there's enough money, only then can I enter Fungu. If I wanted to have a seat in Fungu, I'd need to pay quite a big price. He pushed his boat to leave into the distance, disappearing in the sea of fog. Yet his voice still came over. Fungu is interested in living people like you. If you help the dead do some stuff, they will pay you with Fungu gold coins as a reward. Like that, you will be able to come back to Fungu frequently. That's what I did in the past. Qin Mu hurriedly brought the dragon Qilin and the chest toward Fungu. Not much later, he finally came to the boundary stone of the living realm of the dead. At the sight of it, he couldn't help breathing a sigh of relief. At that moment, a loud bang rang out behind him. Shingan had finally broken free of the monsters and rushed out of the sea of fog. He landed on the pier. Qin Mu's expression changed slightly, and he immediately rushed into the living realm of the dead, hurrying forward frantically. The dragon Qilin also picked up his speed and ran. As he did so, he noticed that his meal master had disappeared and beside him was a skeleton that was running with all his strength. That skeleton was wearing Qin Mu's clothes and shoes. The dragon Qilin's hair stood on ends and he gave off a miserable shriek. At that moment, he saw that he had also become a skeleton. The dragon Qilin's limbs became soft and he fainted. This time, it wasn't faked. Qin Mu stopped and wanted to raise him up to continue running when he saw Shingan rushing into the boundary of the living realm of the dead. Bang! On Shingan's neck, another head squeezed out, and below his arm, another arm suddenly popped out. Then, he grew for more legs. Qin Mu was stunned, and Shingan was also stunned. There were more popping sounds then, and another body grew out from his body. More heads grew around his head, and it was hard to say how many bodies were trying to squeeze out of him. He grew dozens of arms, dozens of legs, 20 to 30 heads, and even bodies that were grown together. Thump! Shingan collapsed onto the floor with numerous arms grasping for something randomly in all directions. His heads were also struggling and roaring as though they wanted to crawl out of his body that was a huge mess. It was evident that the consciousness of the various limbs wasn't the same and didn't belong to one person. There were some 20 to 30 people, and every one of them wanted to crawl out and leave. Living realm of the dead, living realm of the dead, Qin Mu vanquished the thought of escaping and muttered, so this is then the way to counter Shingan. His body was pieced together from the body parts of 20 to 30 strong practitioners that were close to God level. Upon coming to this world, those parts that had vanished will reappear. Suddenly, a huge bird flew over from the darkness and landed on the mountain in front of them. He tilted his head to examine them curiously. Is the one that arrived human Emperor Qin? The huge bird flapped its wings and transformed into a bird-headed god. He folded his wings and spoke in human language. Your actions have been exposed, and King Yama has been looking for you for a long time. Qin Mu was astonished. I've done something? How come I did not know that? The bird-headed god tilted his head and flapped his wings. He said unpleasantly, how could you not know what you did? Think again. King Yama will behead you later and let you understand why you died. Qin Mu was at a loss. He couldn't remember anything that could have brought upon him King Yama's ire. Could it be because I drove Moonship away? But Moonship doesn't belong to Fungu, but moon herders. King Yama despised the character of Moon Guardian, so he didn't accept his allegiance. Driving Moonship away wouldn't be a crime, would it? He had entered Fungu to find village chief and check if the young patriarch was also there or not. Even though the bird-headed god said he had done something, Qin Mu didn't worry at all. Instead, he even felt a little anticipation. Besides, he couldn't run even if he wanted to. Suddenly, Shingan's roars sounded out. Divine Physician Qin, what have you done to me? Qin Mu turned back to look. The existence that was the strongest in the world couldn't be found anymore. He had all kinds of body parts hanging off him, with some of the heads being those of men and some of women. They were young and old, but none of them actually belonged to him. Upon coming to the living realm of the dead, the original consciousness of the body parts had recovered, and the missing limbs were restored, seizing back the body parts that originally belonged to them. In comparison, Shingan's own consciousness became no stronger than those the others occupying his body. He could no longer control such a strange body that had so many limbs. Shingan, what have you done to us? 20 to 30 heads asked together as the limbs started fighting one another. It was like a round ball rolling around. Shingan, it isn't what I have done to you, but what you've done to them. You stole their body parts which created the current you. In this living realm of the dead, the living are the dead, and the dead are the living. Look at me and the dragon Qilin, and you will understand my words, Qin Mu said sorrowfully. Shingan couldn't move at all, only the limbs of the other people could do it. He had stolen too many parts from other people's bodies, and as a result, the only thing that actually belonged to him was the 3 souls in his body. Even his primordial spirit was seized from another person. The bird-headed god tilted his head to look at him. Shingan, King Yama would also like to see you. You've got a primordial spirit that interests him. Everyone, follow me. The huge meatball formed by Shingan roared and even tried its best to leave this world. Yet the body parts didn't listen. Instead, they crawled toward Fungu. Let me go. Shingan's voice held a hint of fear. It was the second time he felt fear. The first time was when he had opened Life and Death Divine Treasure. He noticed that there was an end to his life, that once his lifespan was up, the Yudu below Life and Death realm would swallow his primordial spirit, sending him into darkness forever. It was a great terror, an outcome that he couldn't accept. After opening Divine Bridge Divine Treasure, he realized that it was broken, and with his intelligence, he couldn't repair it, so Shingan chose another path to immortality. He seized the body parts of others. Since he couldn't become a god himself and his corporeal body would age, he would just have to seize other people's body parts and replace his aging corporeal body. He was arrogant, so he decided to become another type of god, and those who could catch his eyes were all top-notch existences in the whole world, existences that had reached God realm in some sort of way. Even though he didn't kill those sheep, they had still died because of him. Now that they revived, he died instead. Those people were splitting apart the body of a true god he had painstakingly refined, trying to tear him apart. He felt great terror again, the fear for his life. The bird-headed god gently shifted his foot to find a more comfortable position. He then pulled his head back and perched on the mountaintop. Shingan, what you have done has also been exposed, but the one that King Yama wants isn't you, it's the survivor of the celestial heavens within you. He, a sinister voice came from Shingan's body. What bullshit, King Yama? He's merely a survivor of the old era. You guys are looking for me, right? Shaman God Kuei. Qin Mu was astonished. He saw Shaman God Kuei's primordial spirit swelling up from Shingan's body that was full of limbs and forming into a fierce and frightening behemoth that was 3,000 yards high. It was even bigger and more majestic than mountains, its gaze like the mouths of 2 volcanoes that were giving off flames. Around them were incomparably intense darkness. He looked down from above at the bird-headed god on the mountain. He sneered and said, "You are also a survivor of the old era. I've met you before, founding Emperor Era's Knight Roma. You were a Scops owl that guarded the souls of convicts in founding Emperor Era, a god that could travel freely between Yudu and reality, and your name is Kai Xiao. Kai Xiao, take my worship." He bowed, but the bird-headed god stood steadily on the mountaintop, not moving at all. Shaman god Kuei was astonished and bowed again. The bird-headed god raised a leg and rubbed the corner of his beak. Shaman god Kuei's heart trembled, and he hurriedly turned to leave, running out of the living realm of the dead frantically. He hadn't died yet. His corporeal body was still suppressed in Yang Mountain in great ruins, so he didn't recover in Yudu and only had his primordial spirit. Its speed was unmatched and was even faster than any divine legs. He moved and crossed the sea of fog in an instant, nearly rushing out of Fungu. But at that moment, bird-headed god Kai Xiao flapped his wings, and a gale passed Qin Mu and the rest. He raised his head and saw a human-faced bird with an immeasurable wingspan that covered the sun. With his talons, he caught the majestic primordial spirit of Shaman god Kuei. The next moment, the bird-headed god flapped his wings and came back. He pressing Shaman god Kuei against the ground and quietly pruning his feathers while squatting on the mountaintop. Qin Mu shivered. The bones on his body collided randomly and rattled. Against such speed, not to say him, even cripple couldn't escape in time. The shape of bird-headed god Kai Xiao was extremely weird. When he had flowed out that moment, he had transformed from corporeal body into pure primordial spirit state, so his speed had gained that speed, even greater than that of Shaman god Kuei's primordial spirit. It was the reason why he could easily catch up to and capture him. While he flew back, he transformed back into corporeal body state. This kind of technique that could turn him into immaterial and solid was extremely strange. No wonder Shaman god Kuei said he could travel in and out of Yudu freely. It seems like what he said is true, Qin Mu thought to himself. Shaman god Kuei was chained down as he struggled endlessly. However, he still couldn't break free from them. Even if the fierce god was incomparably strong and evil, he was still helpless at this moment. When he saw he couldn't break free, he quietened down and sneered. "Kai Xiao, my life belongs to heaven and not King Yama. So what if you can take me down?" The bird-headed god flapped his wings and another chain flew out to tie up Shingan. It was made from white bone as though crafted from backbones. It was hard to say how many joints were there. The white bone chain surrounded Shingan before binding Qin Mu's hands. Qin Mu was slightly puzzled. "I can't run, so why must senior brother Kai Xiao take the trouble?" "Don't talk, I hate the smell of living human." The bird-headed god moved, and the white bone chains chained Qin Mu together with Shaman god Kuei, bringing them to Fungu. Qin Mu then immediately said, "I still have a chest and a dragon Qilin. Truly troublesome." Bird-headed Kai Xiao undid the chains and said, "Wake up your dragon Qilin and hurry up. Don't try to run, for you can't run." Qin Mu kicked the dragon Qilin awake, but it still didn't regain consciousness. Kai Xiao then plucked a feather and gently brushed it against the dragon Qilin's forehead. Only then did the fatty wake up and shiver in fear. Qin Mu consoled him. "Fatty dragon, don't be scared. Patriarch is also probably here. Now that we have entered Fungu, we might just be able to meet him." The dragon Qilin's mind was blown, and he stuttered, Didn't you say Patriarch became a god?" Qin Mu was silent for a moment before breaking into a smile. "Patriarch became a god in Fungu." The dragon Qilin fell silent and raised his claws to wipe his eye sockets. However, he had no corporeal body now, so he had no tears too. "I knew that you lied to me back then." He hung his head down. Qin Mu thought about it and said, "Look, in this world, you and I are dead, but Patriarch is still living well. In our world, we are living, but Patriarch is dead. Maybe, life and death isn't like what you're thinking, and after death, it is just another way of living. You need not be sad." The dragon Qilin raised his head and said seriously, "But from today onwards, you can't lie to me again." Qin Mu nodded solemnly. "I was scared you'd take it too hard, so. I'm not a small child, I can take it." The dragon Chilean's tone was calm when he said, "I'm already very satisfied that he's able to live in this world. Cult Master, your tailbone is hurting me." Qin Mu stood up and stepped on his head. The dragon Chilean followed the bird-headed god through the gates of hell and towards Fungu city. Behind them, the chest followed while swaying. It was stumbling left and right as though it was drunk. Qin Mu turned back to look and was puzzled. He then suddenly remembered something. Not good, it's all the arms and legs inside the chest. Just as he thought that, Shingan's huge chest couldn't hold back any longer, and it opened up, vomiting everything that was inside it. Strange and bizarre people fell out, and a bunch of overjoyed skeletons was also spat into midair. "We are in Fungu." Those skeletons grew flesh in the air and landed on the ground, transforming into naked men and women. They were overjoyed and sprinted straight toward Fungu. Meanwhile, the people spat out by the chest were not complete. Some were missing arms and some were missing legs. There were even people with huge holes in their chests, missing their hearts. Some were missing ribs, some souls, and some divine treasures. What they lacked were all strange and weird. These people were at a loss. They were the limbs that Shingan had collected. The chest went after the people that had run away relentlessly, wanting to capture them back for its collection. Qin Mu immediately called it back and said, "Those people have come back to life here, so there's no need to collect them anymore. I will give you a few treasures, so just place them into your stomach." Bang, bang, bang. Loud rumbles came from the chest, and it became larger and larger. After a moment, it transformed into a behemoth in front of them. Qin Mu opened his mouth in astonishment, his jaw almost dropping to the ground. He immediately held onto it. The dragon Chilean's lower jaw also dropped to the ground as he opened his mouth wide in disbelief. Their chest monster had become a huge deities. Qin Mu and the dragon Chilean had dazed looks. They raised their heads to look at the behemoth beside them, speechless. The deities stood beside them like a mountain-sized mountain goat. Its front two limbs were incomparably strong and its back limbs were thick and short. The hair on its body had bronze patterns, going round and round. The behemoth had a human face, but its facial features were extremely weird. Its eyes were under its armpits, the place where its front limbs were connected to its chest. Its mouth was squarish and wide, filled with tiger's teeth. Its goat's horns protruded out like thorns, looking extremely fierce. Shingan's chest had been made from Taotia's skin, which was used on the surface of the chest, and bones, which acted as the frame. One had to know that Qin Mu had 2 deities sacks, but the amount of skin used to make one was merely a foot in length and width. Yet the exterior of the huge chest used the skin of one whole deities. If one added the deities bones that were used to support the space inside, the chest could be said to be incomparably luxurious. Qin Mu's deities sack didn't transform because the interior space wasn't connected to the outside world. On the other hand, the chest had transformed into deities because its interior space had connected with the outside world. The transformation of the chest was slightly slower, probably because its interior was a world by itself. To spat out everyone in its stomach, the chest had opened up, which resulted in its interior coming in contact with Fungu, so the chest was also affected by the living realm of the dead. Qin Mu pulled away his gaze and hurriedly grabbed the deities sacks at his waist, thinking to himself, "My deities sacks need to be kept properly, I definitely cannot open them, otherwise, it won't be 2 deities sacks on my waist, but 2 deities strapped to me." 2 mountain-sized deities strapped to his waist and him stuck in the middle would definitely not be something pleasant. No matter if it was a squeeze or a tug, he would die incomparably miserably. The deities transformed from the chest raised its claws, still puzzled why it would change like that. However, it didn't think much about it and immediately took off to chase the people that were running toward Fungu. It opened its mouth in delight and tried to swallow them all. Even though it was affected by the living realm of the dead and gained flesh and blood, its mind was still simpler. After all, it was a chest awakened by Qin Mu. The dead that were being chased by it were frightened out of their wits, to the point they had no more will to do anything. Deities was one of the most famous evil creatures and ate anything. It was never fussy, so it was no wonder they fled everywhere in fear. Qin Mu hesitated for a moment and called out to the creature. The doubt-eyed chest ran back and looked reluctantly at the escapees. When it saw the dragon Qin, it couldn't help jumping in joy again and opened its strangely weird mouth. The dragon Qilin's hair stood on ends, and he immediately said, "You can't eat me. I treat you as a good brother, yet you want to eat me. Where's the justice?" Qin Mu consoled him. "Don't worry, it doesn't want to eat you. It just likes to collect some bones, hands, and legs. Spit me out, quickly spit me out. Damn chest, stupid chest, even eating me. Quickly spit me out." Finally, they came to the first divine city in Fungu. At this place, Qin Mu saw all kinds of strange and weird people. Some of them had no heads, some huge holes in their chests, and some were missing arms or legs. However, there were also strong practitioners that had died normally, so their arms and legs were intact. There were many people in the first god city, and there were also strange life forms lingering in the air. They didn't look like the dead, but like spirits. Those are the scattered souls of strong practitioners. Their incomplete souls are lingering around here, but even in Fungu they don't have their own corporeal bodies, bird-headed god Kaishio said. "Don't look at them, be careful of being possessed." Qin Mu hurriedly looked away. However, his curiosity was roused. Instead of looking at the incomplete souls that were lingering around, he examined other people. Soon, he discovered something strange. Other than the incomplete souls in the sky, there were actually people without corporeal bodies as well. There were many who didn't have an inch of it. Only their primordial spirits were left. Yet even so, those people were extremely strong. However, the forms of their primordial spirits were different from the human body. They usually were shaped as sacred creatures. The most common primordial spirit forms were the four great spirit bodies, them being the million bird god, black tortoise god, green dragon god, and white tiger god. However, there were even more primordial spirits that were something else, some fantastic oddities of every description. There were demon-faced gods with green faces and tusks, bull-headed gods with horns on their heads and fire wrapping around their bodies, gods with human heads and snake bodies, gods with 3 heads and 6 arms, and gods with all kinds of other forms. These people aren't incomplete souls, their primordial spirits are complete. Where are they from? Since they have primordial spirits and not corporeal bodies here, doesn't that mean that their corporeal bodies are still alive? Qin Mu suddenly took note of some crucial points. The corporeal bodies of those primordial spirits were still alive. He stared with his eyes wide open. There were numerous primordial spirits of all forms in the city. In just the period of time from when he had entered the city, he had already seen more than 200 of them. Didn't this mean that there were 200 and more gods still alive? Where were all of them hiding in his world? Not only that, more than 200 was just what he had seen when he entered the city. This meant that there were even more primordial spirits in the city. Besides, this city was only one god city of Fungu. According to the where he had been the previous time he had come, there should be quite a few Fungu cities. The last time he had seen the place, there seemed to be some 9-10 cities, and each one was very large. This video will end here.